This morning about 8:20, we had a officer that was on the Douglas Street Bridge working a traffic accident. While he was working the traffic accident, he noticed that there was a male floating in the river. It appeared that he had some sort of floating device with him and was waving his hands over his head. There was concern about this man's safety due to the high water and the fact that there shouldn't be anyone in the water at that location. We did have fire rescue come out. Turns out the man, who's approximately 35 years old, was floating in the river under his own volition. He decided that he did not want to be rescued. He floated from at least the Douglas Street Bridge, well past the Lincoln Street Dam, and then on towards Pawnee Street when he was finally rescued. He was told he was under arrest. He indicated that he was not going to come in if he was under arrest, and that put the fire crews in a precarious position trying to rescue him. He was eventually able to be rescued, and at that point was taken into custody and booked into the Sedgwick County Jail. There's two ordinances specifically that deal with being on the water. The first one is that there's no swimming between the Seneca Street Bridge to the north and the Lincoln Street Bridge to the south. That area is prohibited from swimming, and we are definitely going to take whatever enforcement actions we need to take if people choose to try to get out in weather and water like this. It's extremely dangerous. It puts rescue crews in a, as I said, a precarious position trying to go in and try to rescue. That's why it's illegal. In addition, this 35-year-old male had several warrants out for his arrest. So when he was taken into custody and we got him identified, he did have some warrants out for his arrest. Don't know exactly where he entered the river from. Again, he was spotted at the Douglas Street Bridge by an officer.
You know what it was floating on?
My understanding it was a pool noodle.
What?
A floating pool noodle.
It was more like a inflatable. The rest of you guys think it might have been a dragon.
Okay, well,
That's a dragon.
it was not an appropriate device. I do have Stu Bevis with fire here, and I'll let him talk about the.
Okay, I have one question.
I have a couple
We
questions
wanted to
here.
answer.
Sure.
Okay, we're seeing the high water right now. Does that rule apply all the time, or is it just during high water?
There are two ordinances, and let me give them to you. The first one has to do with swimming, wading, or bathing. These are parks ordinances, by the way. And basically, that means there can be no one in the water at any time, swimming, bathing, or wading between Seneca and the Lincoln Street Dam.
You're talking on the big river,
Big river.
because I've seen kayakers in Riverside Park.
Kayaking and being on boats is different. This is swimming, wading, or bathing. So this is actually someone being in the water, not boats.
You say you use the word rescue, yet he said he resisted. Was he really in trouble? Did he believe he was in trouble yet was still
No.
resisting, or what? I mean,
And I'll defer to.
Okay.
Let me get the other
Sure.
the other ordinance that has specifically to do with whether or not anything can be on the river is in a high water event. There's an ordinance that says that no one can operate a watercraft, and that would apply to boats in an event where the water's high enough and it's rapid enough, and this certainly qualifies the rain that we've had. So those are the two ordinances that we are reminding people, stay off the river, stay off, and really, as a practical safety matter, stay off any body of water right now because they're too dangerous.
What was the second one? Was the second ordinance?
Second ordinance relates to high water level. It's 9/27/200, and it basically shuts the river down so that no watercraft can be on the river.
What's the level for that?
Yeah.
Or is that like police discretion?
It's basically within the city of Wichita. The city shall close the boat ramp at Central Riverside Park when, in its opinion, high water makes the river unsafe for watercraft activities. This would qualify as making it unsafe, so it's a judgment call, but the city has the right to close it down.
That would include boats and stuff too.
It includes all watercraft activities
And dragons.
and and people that want to float. I am going to let Stu kind of talk about the rescue end of it. So,
Just like Doug said, the call started about 8:20 this morning, and when crews first arrived, they were trying to set up to pull the victim out at the Lincoln Street Bridge. He basically avoided those efforts. We had ropes to him. We got the jet ski to him actually right around that time, and the jet ski was actually with him for a majority of time from Lincoln all the way down to south of the Pawnee Street Bridge, where he was finally pulled out, is between the Pawnee Street Bridge and the Johnny Mack, actually near the sand volleyball course there at Watson Park. We had about 10 units out there doing this, and it was sort of a leapfrog effort because we're used to that one standard. We have this address we're doing our incident command at. In this case, command had to keep moving units farther south to cover. And those 10 units included, of course, units from Wichita and from Sedgwick County Fire with their special rescue team as well. Eventually, we were able to get the boat south of him, and that's eventually he agreed to get into the boat. But there were several times where our crews had contact with him, the jet ski, the ropes, and he avoided that contact. And as Doug said, that put our crews in jeopardy as well, because we're doing things on the river, but every time we get in there and we have an unknown factor, like somebody like this who's floating down the river, bad things can happen. Just because he didn't want to be rescued, now we don't have that option. That's a very dangerous situation. Any second, you've all seen what's floating down the river. He could be rendered unconscious, and he was not in a safe situation with a plastic floaty from Walmart or whatever the situation was.
So I'm still a little confused.
Yeah.
Was he refusing to come out because of other circumstances like his warrants that he had, or was he truly just didn't feel like he needed to be rescued?
That's his, I can't read his mind, but he did make statements that he was fine and he didn't want to be pulled out, but that wasn't really his choice. We have to, 2 seconds later he get hit by a log, and then he's a victim, and then we're putting people in the water. So in this case, it's as Doug said, there's ordinances against this, and it's common sense. In this instance, being out there and like that is just putting a lot of people at risk, actually.
You threw ropes to them, you pushed the ropes away?
Yeah, they actually have we dropping them a loop where we have ropes, especially when we have the bridges where they're able to grab the rope and then they're able to pull them to the side. And there were several times where he'd had the rope, he actually had it in his hand, and then he flipped the rope over himself so he could go on down the river.
Okay, but from the bridges you dropped it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I know you guys just had a major training on all of this earlier.
They've been doing it all this week, yeah.
Yeah. Have you had any other similar rescues besides this one, just since this whole flooding event's been going on?
No, I know we've had a couple different small things, but this obviously is the biggest thing we've had to deal with.
Do you practice resisting rescues?
If you ever been a lifeguard, you have to be prepared because people try to fight you off on things like that. But this is an unusual situation, and also with the added thing that the guy thought, oh, I'm in trouble now, so now I don't want to be helped. There are those instances, and we just have to be careful because just like in a fire situation, we want to make the situation better, but we're not going to make it better by putting our people at extensive risk. And if this guy's fighting us, we're going to do the most remote thing we can to help him. That's why, we toss him something, reach out with something. The last thing we ever do is get ourselves bodily in the water. That doesn't just work with the river. That works in any kind of body of water, whether it be a pool or otherwise, because that puts you at more risk if you're actually trying to swim and rescue the person.
So no firefighters had to get in the water, for rescue guys had to get in the water?
No, they were in craft. The only ones that were on the water in the jet ski and the boat.
You got finally got him in the boat?
Yes. And then he was taken to the Johnny Mack Bridge where he was got to the shore and then taken into custody.
It's sort of before 9 a.m., is that what it is?
It started at 8:20. They had him in the boat at 8:57.